If you've paid attention to India over the last few years, you've noticed that India is being appreciated more across the world.
I am a big fan of Hindu and I am a big fan of India. Big fan.
Macro says, quote, I discovered India in the path of dharma, which makes us responsible, each one of us in our respective fields and in solidarity with everyone for the order of the world.
The President of the United States himself walked up to PM Modi and greeted him with a warm hug.
Yeah, the Indians, that's a fascinating culture, right? For thousands of years they've been doing yoga.
Yeah. I just watched Triple R recently, and I thought the film was incredible. If I was so lucky to work with them, that'd be fantastic.
But if you're over the age of 10 and you remember a world before dance challenges and e-girl thirst traps, you may remember that this has not always been the case.
The faithful must give alms as well as pray to make sure the son is saved. But the gentleman with a snake is just catching in. Must be awfully hard to say no to a python. In the thick of it all, cows walk where they will. To Hindus, they are holy.
Remember that racist cartoon? Quite a different view of India since those times. The country is showing itself to the world as the land of space explorers rather than just the land of snake charmers. India over the last couple of decades has significantly developed its hard power in terms of economic, political and military strength. This has allowed India to flex its soft power, which is where India's growing cultural influence comes in. What is soft power and how is India flexing it? Well, let's find out. So let's first try to find out what soft power really is.
Soft power is a lot of things, including influence, persuasion, reputation, and the ability to get something done without force.
And India has been blessed with vast reserves of soft power. Yoga is already a $37 billion industry. Ayurveda is already a $5 billion industry. Indian entertainment is turning into a huge global industry. Just Bollywood made $1.28 billion in 2022. If you add other Indian film industries, this number can easily quadruple. Meditation and mindfulness are projected to become a nearly $25 billion market by 2030. In terms of sports, cricket has the potential to do for India what the English Premier League did for England. Did you know that the Indian Premier League is already the 4th richest league in the world? India has always had this soft power potential, but until just a little while ago, there hasn't been a concerted attempt to utilize it, to harness it, and to spread it. It's like India has had the powers of Spider-Man, but have never gotten around to using them to save New York.
Wait! Who are you?
Until recently, India was going through a severe identity crisis. The Indian political leadership, as well as the people in charge of India's education system, were hell-bent on presenting Indians with a version of India which portrayed them as a defeated people who possessed nothing of value to offer the world. In fact, everything valuable that India had been provided to them by foreign invaders. In fact, even today, and until recently, there are cities and public places that are named after brutal foreign invaders. Places like Firozshah Kotla Stadium, Aurangzeb Road, Allahabad, Bakhtiyarpur. The history textbooks have only showcased Indian history as a series of Indians losing battle after battle.
Is that it is not our history at all. It is really the history of foreign invaders. When you read Indian history, it is a long litany of battles that the Indians lost. And it's about the 3 battles of Panipat, it's about the Battle of Plassey and the Battle of Buxar. But you never read anything about the battles that the Indians won through spilling a lot of blood. And we won quite a lot of times. And that is why we continue to exist, because it was not as if those who invaded us did not try to forcibly change and dominate us.
Our historians have told us that India has only been enriched by foreign invaders.
Mughals made India rich. Mughals enriched Indian arts. They gave us the Taj Mahal. They gave us beautiful gardens. Even samosa and biryani are claimed as dishes handed over to us by the Mughals.
मुगलों ने भारत को अमीर बनाया और ये एक तथ्य है.
It is a very narrow view of India, overshadowing India's triumphs and achievements. The valor of India's Rajput kings, the strategic might of the Marathas, the refusal of the home kings to be defeated, how the southern kingdoms preserved Indian culture, language and heritage while it was being destroyed in northern India. The unrelenting 1,000-year war of independence fought by Indians across the length and breadth of the country. And the crazy thing is that this identity crisis was forcibly put into the heads of Indians by India's political leadership, starting from the very first Prime Minister of India, Jawaharlal Nehru, who made an avowed Islamist, Maulana Abul Kalam Azad, the first education minister of India.
Maulana Azad asked Indian Muslims to fight to preserve the Islamic Caliphate. If a thorn gets stuck in a Turk's soul in the battlefield of war, then I swear by the God of Islam, no Muslim of India can be a Muslim until he feels that prick in his heart instead of soul, because the Millat-e-Islam is a single body. He even criticized liberal Muslims who did not side with him in support of the Caliphate, calling them munafiqeen or hypocrites, and saying that the time had come to discriminate between faith and non-belief.
Things didn't get any better with Nehru's successor, Indira Gandhi, who made an avowed communist, Nurul Hasan, the education minister of India. These leftist historians essentially had a monopoly on what was taught to generations of Indian students.
The Jawaharlal Nehru University, or the JNU, was the brainchild of Prime Minister Indira Gandhi and Hasan. JNU was meant to produce and train the core of a committed bureaucracy who were to be loyal to the ideals of the left. The institution took a sharp left turn thanks to the curricula and faculty carefully chosen by Hasan from his pool of pro-communist teachers. Over the years, many of the faculty posts were held by the left or liberal academics.
In fact, their power was so big that they started interfering in major Indian civilizational issues like the Ram Mandir movement in the 1990s.
And in the 80s, Muslims were many of the Muslims, then top leaders were also almost ready to hand it over so that, a problem could be solved. This historian, especially Professor Irfan Habib, they came and they said, no, it has been, the place has been excavated by Professor B.B. Lal. And he did not find any material from there. And so, Muslims, you should not hand it over the place to Hindu community.
There was an agreement among the left historians and archaeologists that the big four, that is R.S. Sharma, D.N. Jha, Romila Thapar and Irfan Habib, they will not present themselves in court, but they will send their colleagues and students to make statements in court. He is shown to have any expertise, but they were just motivated by their bias, that they have to make statements against the temple, and they went to any extent.
This led to only the leftist perspective on history and Indian politics being taught in India. An objective view on India was buried, and all alternative voices like Sitaram Goyal, Ram Swarup, Girilal Jain, Veer Savarkar, N.S. Rajaram, R.C. Majumdar were seen as a challenge to the leftist monopoly and deliberately curtailed. There was such a leftist monopoly on Indian education for such a long time that even today, an American right-wing commentator like Ben Shapiro refers to a far-left historian named Ramchandra Guha to understand India. He would never refer to far-left sources to understand America, but he does so for India because that's all that's available to him. He may as well read Hafiz Saeed's speeches to understand Indian culture and politics then. In fact, it took 75 years after Indian independence for the first serious work on Savarkar to be published. Remember, this is Veer Savarkar, who is seen as the father of arguably the most influential political and social movement in India right now, called Hindutva. And even economically, India was struggling. The Indian economy had been crippled by socialist policies. India had to mortgage its gold just to keep the country running. In fact, due to India's socialist policies, it had to be placed in the Fragile Five group. But thankfully, slowly, over the past decade and a half, things started to change. India recovered on three fronts: the political front, the economic front, and as a result of that, the cultural front. With the advent of the Modi government, there has been a political environment where India's civilizational revival has started from the top down and the bottom up simultaneously. The environment has been created to redevelop India's soft power and to finally start spreading it across the world. So how did that happen? Well, let's look at the three aspects. Let's start with economic. The days of India being in the Fragile Five are thankfully over. The UN has reported that India will be one of the few bright spots in a world rife with recession. India has surpassed the UK to become the fifth largest economy on planet Earth, and soon it will become the third largest economy. India is constructing infrastructure at a breakneck speed. It is constructing roads right now at the pace of roughly 30 kilometers per day. Moreover, India launched the Jal Jeevan mission to give tap water to every citizen of the country, and the results are quite positive. The number has reached 13 crores today, which is around 70% of all Indian households. India is also becoming a massive manufacturer of electronics, and even Apple and Samsung smartphones are starting to be manufactured in India. You can also look at India's growing political power. According to the World Migration Report 2022, India has the largest immigrant population in the world, making it the top origin country globally. The Indian diaspora also is the enabler of the world's largest remittance economy worth $100 billion, which is roughly half of Pakistan's GDP and soon might even surpass Pakistan's GDP. Just when you thought things couldn't get more embarrassing for Pakistan, more embarrassing than selling donkeys, women, and even your embassies to pay for food and electricity, but here we bloody are.
Oh shit.
Now this diaspora is also flexing its political muscle. The Prime Minister of the UK, Rishi Sunak, is of Indian origin and is from the Conservative Party. One of the most popular Republican, that is conservative candidates in America is an Indian origin man named Vivek Ramaswamy.
So I'm a Hindu. There's many strains like there are Christianity, Catholicism, etc. There's many strains of Hinduism too. I believe in one true God. I believe that that God resides in each of us. I think it is the same statement of spirit when we say in the Christian tradition, and I did go to Catholic schools and I've read the Bible perhaps more closely than most Christians I know. It's the same message as when we say we are equal because we are made in the image of God. And I'm not running to be pastor-in-chief, I'm running to be commander-in-chief. It's a different role, right? And for that role, I think we share the same value set.
The Indian vote in Western countries is slowly shifting to the right. Domestically, the Indian government has made some power moves where it has managed to stay neutral in the Russia-Ukraine war while still maintaining friendly relations with Western countries. It has also managed to remain neutral between the Israel-Palestine issue while keeping good relations with Israel and developing very meaningful relations with Arab Muslim countries. At the G20 meeting this year, India announced the Middle East Economic Corridor that included Israel as well as 2 Arab Muslim nations in Saudi Arabia and the UAE. India was one of the bright spots during the COVID pandemic, where it provided vaccines to multiple countries in dire need, as well as to the UN peacekeeping forces. Another feat that India achieved was bringing the African Union into the G20 when it had the opportunity to host the G20 meeting this year. This has led to significant goodwill between the African countries and India. The vision that India has for Africa is also very different from the vision that China has for Africa. While China traps poor countries in debt traps and captures their nation's key assets, like it did with Sri Lanka and multiple countries in Africa, India, on the other hand, wants Africa to develop, sees Africa with an angle of mutual respect. India's stance in Africa has been praised by many African leaders.
You know, we're quite delighted at the leadership demonstrated by Prime Minister Modi.
Prime Minister Modi has laid a very strong basis for the South.
India is also leading the way in green energy. India stands 4th globally in renewable energy installed capacity, 4th in wind power capacity, and 4th in solar power capacity. India has set a target to reduce the carbon intensity of the nation's economy by less than 45% by the end of the decade and achieve net zero carbon emissions by 2070. And these massive economic and political changes have provided Indians with the self-confidence that they've been lacking for so many decades. And that self-confidence is now leading to some significant cultural changes in the country. Finally, an objective or right-of-center view on Indian history and politics is being developed. Authors like Sanjeev Sanyal, Jai Sai Deepak, Vikram Sampath have become best-selling authors in India. Even fiction books based around Indian history and Indian itihas are becoming national bestsellers. Pro-India entertainment is also very popular.
Ramam, Ranadhiram, Shivoham, 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 Shivoham.
वक्त आ गया है खून का बदला खून से लेने का।
नया हिंदुस्तान है, ये अंदर में घुसेगा भी और मारेगा भी।
And we've seen the growing influence of these movies even outside of India.
There were moments in that film where I just had to get up.
I had never seen anything like this film.
You guys ready? Ooh! RRR!
And due to the increasing self-confidence of Indians, they're more willing to speak up for their rights. Indian festivals are going worldwide. Both Trump and Biden have celebrated Diwali in the White House. Rishi Sunak celebrated Diwali at 10 Downing Street. Holi and Diwali were recently declared official holidays in New York City. More cities across the United States are also expected to adopt these two holidays as official holidays. The Indian government, through celebrating World Yoga Day every year and taking leadership of World Yoga Day, is trying to put India right in the center of the growing global yoga, meditation and mindfulness market. Paganism is becoming more and more popular in the West, and it is leading to more and more Westerners exploring Indian spirituality. Even domestically, Indians are finally reclaiming their long-lost temples, like the Ram Mandir, and many massive and grand temples are coming up across the world, including one in New Jersey in America, the world's tallest religious monument in Vrindavan in Uttar Pradesh, the Umiya Mata Mandir in Gujarat, the temple of the Vedic Planetarium in West Bengal, which will be the largest temple in the world. It's quite incredible the effect that India's growing military, political and economic power has had on India's self-confidence. They feel much more confident in evangelizing their cultural identity. The West grew so successful and has such cultural influence over the rest of the world because of its soft power. And India is now starting to do the same. And I want to ask you, how would you like to see India grow its soft power outside of India in the rest of the world? Let me know your thoughts and your suggestions in the comment section below. If you like these English Explainer videos, we're going to be doing more of these in a slightly different setting once our studio gets developed. So please keep an eye out for that. Make sure you subscribe to the channel because you're going to see a new backdrop, a new studio setting for these English style videos. So make sure you keep an eye out for those. I will see you for the next Explainer video. And until then, stay happy, stay healthy. I'll see you next time. And to all of you, is secular pranam.